Yo, what it do, YouTube? It's your boy Ron Film Study here, and today I want to talk about undefeated seasons and how rare it is for NFL teams to achieve an undefeated season. But you do have some historic examples like the 72 Dolphins and the 07 Patriots. While the Chiefs were expected to be strong contenders, no one quite anticipated this kind of unbeaten streak, especially with the strange ways they're securing these wins. The Chiefs' run has been defined by not only strong play, but a series of unusual and sometimes outright controversial officiating calls that seem to work in their favor. Are they just that lucky, or is something else at play? Strange calls and bizarre game-ending scenarios have become almost routine for the Chiefs games this season. And while unusual calls happen to every team, the frequency and timing of these calls for the Chiefs have caught the attention of fans and critics alike. Strange calls and decisions changed the momentum and gave the Chiefs the edge in a lot of their wins this season. And I really want to highlight how these calls happen at critical moments in the game they otherwise could have lost. Now, I first kind of want to freestyle and talk about the Ravens game they played at the start of the year. It was a really good anticipated game. And although Mahomes does kind of own Lamar Jackson in their matchups, and he does have a winning record against him, I do feel like that the game that happened this year was such a crazy game, and it was honestly, you could even make the case for game of the year, but I would definitely say game of the year is the Ravens and Bengals games. Shit, either one of those games you could say is game of the year that they played, but you could still make an argument for the first game of the season being game of the year. It was a really good game all throughout, and it ended with literally inches. Like literally, if this man Isaiah Likely wore like a shoe size or like 2 shoe sizes down, they literally win the game. So even though this is not really like an unfair situation, this has happened multiple times, I just find it crazy that the season opener kind of starts off with the Chiefs kind of winning in the game like that after, coming off of a season where they just won the Super Bowl. And everybody loves to call Mahomes the poster boy, and Mahomes is honestly the poster boy of the NFL. So I feel like when things like this happen to the Chiefs, it's still like we got to look at it like, like it's just like, oh, of course it happened to the Chiefs. You know what I'm saying? But I can't really say this is any officiating problem. He just stepped out of bounds. Obviously, there were controversial calls within that game as well, but I think just the way that the game ended, it wasn't that bad, and it happens. And now I kind of want to discuss the Bengals versus Chiefs game that happened this year, and that game came down to a very controversial call with the defensive PI that got called late at the end of the game. And it was kind of a call where, I understand it. And when I looked at it, I definitely understood it. But I feel like a lot of people kind of didn't like it due to the fact that most refs would let it slide because of the position of when it happened, and kind of like, a lot of people were even making the case that it wasn't a catchable ball in a way, and how they were saying how, like, if it was anybody else, they would have let it play out, and it wasn't that bad to where they should have made the call. But it's like, even if it's not as bad, I feel like he still got there early, and the call still should have been made. But I can definitely see and understand people's arguments onto why they feel as if it should have been called, and that's obviously why I'm putting it in there as a controversial play that kind of changed the way how that game went, obviously, and that won them the game ultimately. It basically sealed the game for them. And if that call doesn't get called, we may look at the Chiefs currently being 8-1 instead of 9-0. But they called it, it sealed the game, and it happened. Obviously, Bengals fans and Bengals players don't like Chiefs fans and Chiefs players, so that came with a lot of tension. And it came with a lot of media coverage because, as I just said, they don't like each other. So a lot of people are going to say, oh, they just doing this to keep the poster boy undefeated and bruh, all of that whatnot. But at the end of the day, it got called. I don't think it was a horrible call, but I definitely, as I said, I understand why a lot of people are saying that it shouldn't have been called in that moment. And he kind of couldn't have controlled himself. Like the defender couldn't really have controlled himself in that position. So I get it, but it, in my opinion, was definitely still a defensive PI. So I think it was ultimately a good call, and I do think the Chiefs did deserve to win that game, even after that. All right, but now I want to discuss the Falcons game and the way that game ended. And I definitely feel as if that the defensive PI that was not called against the Chiefs in the end zone on Kyle Pitts, that should have definitely been called, and it not being called kind of stirred up a whole lot of the devil worshiper talks and saying how it's a lot of dark magic going on with the Chiefs. And I think this is really where it kind of all stirred up and it kicked off this season. And honestly, I don't hate people for saying it. Obviously, I think it's kind of crazy because we've seen undefeated teams before. And I mean, you know, when you have a team who's just coming off of a championship, bro, they're going to find ways to win games in multiple ways. But I can definitely see why people are saying it's rigged. I understand it, but I don't think any of it is rigged. I think, you know, I think obviously the refs favor them. As a Patriots fan, I understand the refs favoring your team, but like the whole rigged and dark magic and all of that whatnot, I think that's a little crazy. But I mean, if y'all want to believe that, go ahead. I just think that's crazy. But it definitely, but the defensive PI that was definitely missed in this game was very crazy, and that's what stirred up a lot of these talks. And now I also want to talk about the Buccaneers game. And that game was a game where I thought the Buccaneers could have even pulled this one off. And it was just another case scenario of Patrick Mahomes doing his best comeback kid impersonation. And it was just another comeback situation for him. Came back being down. They went into overtime. Actually, I want to talk about what happened before they went into overtime. Honestly, I think this isn't even the NFL saving them. I think the Buccaneers not deciding to go for two instead of kicking the field goal just didn't make any sense. Like, it's like, why would you put the game on the line while having I forget if they have a losing record or if they had like a literally just 500 record at the time, but I think they had a losing record. I'm almost sure they had a losing record at the time, and it's like, at this point, you're literally playing an undefeated team. You have a chance to win the game. Why not just win the game at this point? But I think them not going for two is more stupid than any missed call that happened this game that should have been called. And it's just like, I don't know. You literally score a touchdown. It's the end of the game. Just go for two, seal the win, and give them their first loss of the season. They didn't do that. They decided to go to OT. Chiefs ultimately won the coin toss, and as y'all saw on Baker Mayfield's face, he knew it was over. And once we saw his face, everybody else knew it was over. And even before we saw his face, once they said the Chiefs won that damn coin toss, we all knew it was over. So I still think it was crazy for them to not go for two. And I think that game just ultimately ended by, you know, the Chiefs, they got the coin toss and they just played it. They just played it calm. And then they just went out there and won the game. They ended it. And now I want to talk about the Broncos game. And that game, honestly, was just so funny all around. You got Mahomes, who people look at as the best QB in the league. And I honestly think he is still the best quarterback in the league. Lamar is making his case heavy. So I'm all for people saying Lamar is the best quarterback in the league. But I still got Mahomes as the best overall QB in the league. And I feel like when playoffs comes around, he's going to remind y'all again. But this game was just overall funny because Mahomes was out here getting outplayed by a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix and a Broncos team that they usually destroy them. It's usually not really a close game, and even if it is a close game, it's still more in the favor of the Chiefs winning. And it literally came down to a blocked kick that we almost just never see. And it's like, the way the kick was blocked, like the whole old line just fell. Like it literally looked so fake. Like it looked like something that it only happens if you just get the call from Vegas. Like it looked so fake. But I literally saw like a breakdown of the Chiefs. They were literally attacking that same dude that got ran over. Like the dude that got ran over on the Broncos on the Broncos team to where I think it was Karlaftis who blocked the kick. The dude who Karlaftis ran over to block the kick, he literally, like, they were attacking him every time they kicked the ball. So it's like, that makes me think that, you know, it wasn't no call from Vegas. It was just like they finally attacked and it finally worked. But then again, it's like, you know, I feel like this just happened, so the call from Vegas ain't look too, you know, suspicious. But I think it was crazy how the Chiefs are literally about to take a loss to a team that nobody thought would even beat them or it would even be a close game. And it literally comes down to a block kick. And then you got Mahomes running around on the field like they just won the Super Bowl. Like, it was crazy work. And then once that happened, that's when I started seeing the Twitter posts flying about dark magic and this is devil worship shit and all types of stuff. So once this game happened, this is when all of the focus went on to just, this ain't even football, this is just devil stuff, this is just dark magic. You got people on TikTok making videos saying that it's dark magic. You got people posting on Twitter saying it's dark magic, Instagram comments saying it's dark magic, and it was just crazy all around. And I do really find it so weird that the Chiefs were about to take a loss, and this is not the first time they were about to take a loss and something crazy happened. Like, and this is the craziest thing that could have happened. Literally, they would have lost by 1 point with this field goal, and they literally blocked the kick. Like, it's just crazy to me, bro. That's the last game I wanted to talk about of all the times that the Chiefs just got this crazy help from either the officiating or just these crazy quote-unquote coincidences that happened to them, and it ended up happening in their favor. But all in all, I do want to say the Chiefs' undefeated season is still impressive, but it's not just impressive. It's fueled by a series of wins that feel to many fans almost engineered by favorable calls and weird occurrences. I also want to post a question to the viewers out there. Will these kinds of officiating calls and odd outcomes continue for the Chiefs? And will this ultimately taint the potential undefeated run? I also want to talk about if this pattern continues. I want to also throw out there, if this pattern continues, could it affect fans' trust in the league's integrity? And honestly, I think it already is, so I don't even think y'all need to answer that question. And I also want to end off with an open-ended question for you guys. Do you think the Chiefs season is being aided by official calls, or are we just witnessing one of the luckiest runs in NFL history? So with all that being said, this will be the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching, and peace.